We're about 2 weeks out from training camp, which means now is the perfect time to talk about all the different position group battles as the team heads into camp. We're going to discuss who we think may make the team and who may not make the team. Be sure to stick around to the end of the video as we give our reaction to some bold predictions that were recently made online. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of JetCast. As always, I'm Pat, that's Ray, and we are going to talk about some position battles here going into training camp. We're kind of in that dead portion of the offseason where, a lot of the reporters and a lot of the players, honestly, are going on vacation. But we got training camp coming up in a few weeks here, and we really need to talk about what we're going to be looking for as training camp starts and as it progresses. So the first position I kind of want to go over is running back. We took 2 running backs in the draft. It was certainly a head scratcher, but with the new philosophy, I feel like on the offensive side of the ball, trying to get bigger, trying to get meaner, I don't see a spot for Izzy on this roster. I think Braylon Allen's going to be the clear number 2 choice. Ray, what do you think?
I understand where you're coming from with that. I know a lot of Jet fans feel that Izzy might be a camp cut only because he'd be RB4, but we can't forget the new special teams rules when it comes to this season. You need 2 returners back there, and that's a lot. There's a lot of new things happening in regard to special teams this year. So maybe Izzy uses that 4-2-1 speed that we've talked about in the past in the special teams game, but I know that a lot of Jet fans are going to be keen in on who's going to be that banger back behind Breece Hall this season. Breece Hall is obviously going to get the most carries, and they're going to be leading with the running game. But as we know, just like on defense, they like to have that rotational piece behind Breece Hall. And I know a lot of people are running towards Allen, the running back out of Wisconsin. But if we're looking at a guy like Isaiah Davis, he's no slouch. He's a big boy, doesn't have breakaway speed, but in the last 2 seasons, he's had just over 3,000 yards in college and 23 touchdowns. He's another big bruising back. Maybe they use him more for the short yardage type situation, but if we're being honest with ourselves, there's really only 2 breakaway running backs on this team. Guys that could be absolute home run hitters. We've seen Breece Hall do it in the past, but Izzy's the only guy with that 4.2, 4.3, even 4.4 type speed. Is if you look at Allen and Davis, they're more 4.51, 4.58 kind of guys. So they're not that breakaway type of running back. So I still think Izzy, if he impresses enough and can contribute on special teams, he does have a place on this roster.
I worry about his blocking. Right, you always heard that last season was that he wasn't picking up the blocking schemes, and it seems like Braylon Allen already in camp has that down.
It's easy when you're 230.
Right, he's a bigger kid. And so is Isaiah Davis. They're just bigger people, and I think the Jets want to get meaner. They want to get bigger, and he fits right into that mold. I had an interview with one of the reporters that covers the Wisconsin, covers the Badgers football, and he was telling me that he was really concerned about Braylon Allen as far as catching the ball out of the backfield. They felt like that was like the weakest part of his game, but then you hear from the beat reporters at minicamp and at OTA saying he is fantastic out of the backfield catching the ball. So it is a little bit of a toss-up. We don't quite know what we're getting out of him, but I certainly like the idea of him being like that big short yardage kind of guy. I think it was Bart Scott. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was Bart Scott that said, you're going to have Breece is your Ferrari, and Braylon's going to be your F-150. Downhill runner, between the tackles, someone that can get that short yardage, but not only like give Breece a rest because he had a great season last year, and I do not. God, knock on wood, do not need want to see him get hurt in any sort of situation. So I do understand the special teams aspect of keeping Izzy on the field or keeping Izzy on the team. We'll see what happens. But right now, as far as the running back room, I don't see a spot for him. And I don't think I'm, talking crazy by saying
They
that.
might be able to stuff him on the practice squad. I don't know if there's a ton of teams that are high on him around the league. And one thing he does know is this playbook. So maybe he's that kind of roster
Right.
bubble guy where they're able to stash him on the practice squad. God forbid Brees Hall or Allen or Davis go down. You have an immediate guy who can come in and he'll know the playbook. He's not going to be learning it, as we saw last year with Dalvin Cook, that being an issue early on where people were like, why isn't he on the field more? And from rumors that we hear was maybe he wasn't the biggest fan of the Jets playbook.
I think it also comes down to, and a lot of things on the offense are going to come down to kind of what Aaron wants too.
Correct.
Right? He's going to want someone who knows what the hell they're doing. He's not going to stand for any BS, and I don't think any fans are going to stand for it too, because if he gets on the field and he messes up some sort of blocking assignment on a passing play, he might as well sit on the bench for the next 3 games if it happens once with Aaron Rodgers behind there. The other position that I think is something that needs to be addressed is there's really no wide receiver depth behind Garrett and behind Williams. If one of those 2 guys go down, all of a sudden you're relying on Lazard again, and I don't like that. I know we just got Malachi Corley. Again, we're talking about, getting bigger, getting, those short passes, calls himself the Yak King. But let's be real. Right now, as a rookie, he's probably wide receiver 4. Lazard's going to be 3. I think just from the sheer fact that he has that familiarity with Aaron Rodgers. And yeah, his attitude wasn't the greatest last year, but with Aaron there, I would expect that to be much better. I think your 5th wide receiver is probably going to end up being Gibson. And then maybe Brownlee as your 6th. But if Garrett or Williams go down, and Williams is coming off of an ACL, it gets slim pretty quickly, I feel like. And that's something that I certainly worry about.
Yeah, well, Jeff fans, and I'm here to tell you this. I heard a rumor, and I'm sure if you follow us on Twitter, we've spoken about with several reporters that there's a guy that refuses to come out and fully retire in the name of Randall Cobb. And I think he's waiting around for midseason to come in and try to play hero ball. And I will say this, Malachi Corley, a lot of people liked him out of college. I liked him. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, oh, he was my wide receiver 2 or 3, like we hear all these other, Jet fans say. But let's be honest, Corley is more of a Quincy Enunwa type wide receiver. He's never going to kill you with his route running. He was more of a gadget guy throughout his college career, running sweeps, end arounds of that nature. Now, I'm not saying that he can't be that receiver that we're all looking for him to be in the slot, but from everybody that we've spoke to, he needs to work on his route running ability. He has the foot speed to do it, but as we all know, there's no guarantees in the NFL. And one thing that I will say, we heard the stories coming out of training camp. Jason Brownlee is supposedly looking really good. He knows the playbook. He's looking swifter than ever. He is a big boy and has some speed. So I wouldn't be surprised if Lazard starts dropping balls early in the year, maybe you see him fall down in the depth chart. His contract is only guaranteed this year. I believe it's $12 or $12.5 million. So maybe Brownlee impresses throughout training camp. Like, who saw him and Gibson making the final roster out of last year's camp or even coming into camp? So it seems as though every year the Jets seem to find a guy that starts to show out in camp at the wide receiver position. And maybe this year it's Brownlee again, and finally he's able to take that step. That is a guy that I will be really keened in on in the preseason to see how he's performing on the outside.
Another guy that needs to step up or really show that he can play in the NFL is Jeremy Ruckert. It's his 3rd year. We're talking about tight ends now. It's his 3rd year. And Connor Hughes even said it. Like, it's time to put up or shut up, really, with Ruckert. And I love the kid. I think he's actually has a bright future. I think he can do it. especially when you have a competent quarterback throwing the ball to him. He made some really amazing catches last year, especially in like the Chiefs game. But then also his blocking is top notch. So
Yep,
as far
totally
as
agree.
we know Conklin's going to be your tight end one, but Rucker may work his way into being 1A, not really a tight end two. What do you think about Ruckert?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I expected more out of him last year, but we got to look at the quarterback situation. He graded out as a great blocker. And that's one
Yeah.
thing that excites me about him this year. I think he's going to get a lot more playing time than most Jet fans think, especially if we're going to be so dedicated to the ground and pound as it seems that we are. Like, they're going to try to protect Aaron Rodgers. If you think this is the Aaron Rodgers of 3 years ago that's slinging it around, winning MVPs in Green Bay, that's just not going to be the case, especially early on. I could see this staff trying to protect him at all costs, which means running the ball, maybe 2 back sets. Jeremy Ruckert will be in there a ton because of his blocking ability. And I don't know if you remember, Pat, but last year, Ruckert made a few plays down the field, like these
Yeah,
one-handed
that's what I
catches.
was
And,
saying.
you know,
Yeah.
and we all heard that Rodgers throws one of the most, and I hate to say this term, but we hear it all the time, the most catchable balls in the NFL. And that's what excites me about Ruckert, because we got to keep it real here as Jeff fans. We have a lot of guys coming up that we're going to be having to pay in the near future. The Sauce Garners, the Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnsons, the Brees Halls. I can keep going up and down the list. We need some of these young guys to step up. So maybe going into 2025, you could say, you know what, tight end number 1 is a lock with Jeremy Ruckert. I expect Conklin, who had probably the best year of his career last year, he's one of those guys who still lit it up for us to have even a better year this year coming up. But if Rucker continues to block the way he is, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be on this team going forward, especially if he can help his ability to catch the ball a little bit better, a little bit smoother in the route running department. Why can't he be one of the top line tight ends? And I'm not going to say in the league, but maybe in the AFC East.
Yeah, I mean, the I've said it a few times here. The quickest path to success is to keep Aaron Rodgers upright, and you know, obviously the left tackle pick Fashanu goes into that that belief, but also Jeremy Ruckert being on one side of the line and picking up blockers is just part of that belief system in the offense. Um, I think he's going to do it. I think it's going to be a big year for him. Um, he showed he can do it already. Now I want to see him do it now with Aaron Rodgers. Now I touched on it briefly. Obviously, Fashanu, the 11th overall pick, he's not expected to play really yet, but could he possibly work in at right tackle and Moses possibly become the swing? Because I'm hearing that from some people that he is that good that they might want to get him on the field much quicker than what was expected. Now that comes with Tyron Smith having to be healthy. I don't expect him to be healthy the entire year, and I don't think anybody actually does expect him to be healthy the entire year. So Fashanu is going to play at some point this season at left tackle, I think. But he may end up working into being a right tackle if he clearly outplays Moses, which is a possibility, right?
Totally agree. But I also look at it like this. Anytime you see 733 snaps, I don't care if it's in high school and you see 0 sacks, you got to pay attention to it. I
Right.
just did a short on him this past week. Guys of that size are not supposed to be able to do the things that he's doing. And that's what excites me about it. Now, was I completely thrilled about the pick at the time? No, because I wanted the shiny object, like
Right.
a lot of Jeff fans.
Like
Let's
a
be
lot of
real.
you wanted the shiny new toy, and
But when you
apparently
look at
Woody Johnson wanted him too.
yeah, and when you look at it, it's like, well, you just said you got to keep Aaron Rodgers upright, and I don't want to hear, oh well, the left tackle or right tackle got Aaron Rodgers killed last year, and that's why he got hurt. It was a freak injury. At the end of the day, we're going to be relying on this kid to protect our most valued asset. And that's why, you hear every Jeff fan that had the argument for the left tackle was, well, Tyron Smith hasn't played more than 13 games in XYZ years. And I totally understand that argument. But we also got to acknowledge that Morgan Moses is in his 30s too on the right side. So if Fashanu is that great of an athlete, like we keep hearing, I don't see any reason why he can't get reps at both sides, especially if the Jets aren't saying, well, he's not really competing for a starting job at left tackle. Why not try him on the right side? If it doesn't work out, we'll never see him there. But I think he's also a team player. When you hear this kid talk, you could hear the want to be great. He's very intelligent, very composed, understands that he's willing to do whatever the team needs him to do to try to win a Super Bowl. So I could totally see him playing on the right side at some point this year.
I mean, on paper, with Moses on the line from left to right, if they can stay healthy, this is the best offensive line that they've had since 2011.
A big
2010, 2011. They have to stay healthy, obviously.
I know.
But I think a lot of that goes into the quarterback play as well. I mean, we saw it last year. If you have Zach Wilson back there, right, you are blocking for, I feel like, longer than you should be, right? Because you're holding the ball, you're holding the ball. And then eventually you have to break the pocket. And I feel like that's when injuries happen because these defensive tackles, they crash in on the line. You got guys banging into each other. And that's kind of stuff doesn't happen when the timing routes work and the ball is in the quarterback's hands and out in 2 seconds. That kind of stuff doesn't happen. A defensive end, I don't care how good he is, he's not going to get to the quarterback that quick just because the amount of distance they need to travel. Right?
Totally agree.
When you have we have a quarterback back there, and it's going to be really weird for us Jet fans to actually see it, someone play the position,
a functioning human being behind center
that honestly we haven't seen since Chad Pennington. If we're being really honest with ourselves, really play the position the way it's supposed to be played. It's going to be very weird for us to actually see that because it's been so long. And I think that injuries, especially on the offensive line, occur more often when you have someone back there who doesn't know what they're doing, doesn't call the protections the right way, holds on the ball for too long, and you're putting more stress and putting more pressure on that line to keep you upright because you're taking forever to actually make a play. So that's my point. But left to right, Smith, Simpson, Tittman, AVT, Moses, if they can stay healthy, and it's a big if, but if they can stay healthy, I'll put them up against any other line in the NFL.
Right. Well, we've seen how great AVT can be. It's just, freak elbow injury. Like, we got to avoid these things. There's going to be injuries, and that's one thing. That's what scares the hell out of me. And it's good to see that there's tackle depth, but the guard depth, the center depth, am I excited about it? No, not really. And that's what's going to be tested. We have some guys making some decent money at the top of our payroll, and sometimes you got to forfeit that depth for that, and that's kind of what we've done in the middle. So maybe Joe Douglas goes out there and gets a McGovern. He's still out there. He'll cost you next to nothing. You bring him back. He could play center guard, help Tittman communicate, see what's going on out there. And that's the type of veteran presence that I would like to see the Jets bring in for the room. And unlike last year where they brought McGovern back to be the starter to let Tittman sit, I think it's clear as day Tittman is a finally established center and is well ascending and is more than capable of playing the position right now going into training camp and into the season, where it wouldn't even be a competition battle. It would be more of McGovern's brought in to be the backup / mentor to Tittman in the middle.
Well, Tittman took the job from him halfway through the season.
And so deservedly so.
Right, and he started at guard. He was that good they wanted to get him on the field. He started him at guard. and then he moved over to his natural position at center.
Well, let's be real. We just talked about the guard depth, and I hate to even consider this, but in a world where AVT or Simmons get hurt, could you move McGovern back to center and have Tittman play? Is it that or who would you rather have back there? Schwartz. So
I just put if McGovern's on the team, you just put McGovern at guard. Don't complicate it. Don't move too many pieces
do
around.
that
Just
too.
plug someone in. A lot of that's your job.
He didn't grade out too well as a guard when last time he played. What was that, in Denver? But I understand the point, and he knows his offense too.
You move too many. I know you move too many people around. You lose too much cohesiveness along the line.
I get it.
If someone goes down, you plug someone in. I think a lot of times they get too cute with moving too many people around.
I said that last year, yeah.
Especially, AVT. What position was AVT playing both times he got hurt?
Yeah,
wasn't playing guard, right? He's playing left tackle, right? He's not. He doesn't have he can play. He can play left tackle, but
he was playing right tackle the one time. But still, he's playing tackle.
The point. He's playing tackle. He grades out much better as a guard. Now he has played tackle in college. He's obviously played tackle a few times in the NFL, but he's not a natural tackle. He doesn't have the size that you would want. He doesn't have the arm length that you would want. And I'm not, could his injuries been prevented if he wasn't playing tackle? Maybe. And they said it. Saleh said it in a press conference where they don't plan on moving AVT. AVT is a guard, and they do not want to move him. And I agree with it. And they shouldn't have to. If you have bookend tackles of the caliber that are on the team right now.
Totally agree.
So, all right. So on to the defense. Safety. Big questions at safety.
Just put the giant question mark meme.
Now, the defense has not, for the most part, relied a lot on their safety play. They've relied more on their corner play. But that doesn't mean the safeties don't matter at all. I mean, a lot of the plays last year, those big breaking plays that the defense gave up, were because of Jordan Whitehead. If we're being completely honest, he had this great game, 3 interceptions first week.
Wanted to be a ball hawk, Pat.
Fell off a cliff. I know. Tony Adams, which he had
a solid year.
He had a solid.
Too many Jet fans dog on him. He's an undrafted free agent, for crying out loud.
Chuck Clark, we don't know what Chuck Clark's going to be. We just don't know. We've never seen him play. And then you have Ashton Davis. Now Ashton Davis is
good
fine.
In spurts.
Right. He's a guy that I think deserved the contract that he got. He's one of those guys that has gotten better every year incrementally. But he's still not quite a starter.
And he's solid on special teams. That's what you want your backup safeties to be.
Yes, I mean he's the jewel of the 2020 draft. If we're being honest here, he's the only guy left on the team from that draft, and the fact that we're even saying that is horrendous.
What a disaster.
Yeah, well, safety is a big question mark, and that's the one part on this defense that I really worry about, mainly because. Tony Adams, we know Tony Adams is. He's an okay player. We just don't know what Chuck Clark's going to be. We have no clue.
That's right.
So it's a giant question mark. We can't really give you anything, guys, because we just don't know. I don't think anybody.
Well, I know with Baltimore,
he wasn't.
In Baltimore, he was not that good in coverage. He was a box type safety, which I think that's what the Jets are going to ask him to do. So I'm not too worried about that. But I watched Miami expose him. I watched a couple teams expose him. He is like a Jordan Whitehead in coverage. He is not designed to be in coverage, which is okay, especially in the zone type scheme that we play. I think he's more here for run support. And as we've seen last year, the Jets love to play the nickel. So they'll be extra, the extra corner out there to help in in that passing game. And he'll play more of a linebacker type role.
One of the things that I really worry about with the cornerbacks actually is, I'm not worried about, obviously we have the best trio, I think, of the NFL between Reed,
Hands
Sauce,
down.
and Carter II. I worry about Sauce traveling with the wide receiver one. Not that I don't think he can't do it. I think he can do it. But you are now retooling that entire back half of the defense so that he can travel. That question was asked last year, right? Saleh was asked at some point, I forget exactly when, but he was asked at some point last year if he would consider Sauce traveling with wide receiver one instead of taking one half, retaking the other half. And his answer was, you have to rework a lot of the defense in order to make that happen. So we're not doing it. We're sticking to our scheme. If they choose to do it, and I hope they don't, but if they choose to do it, exactly that's is going to happen. They are going to have to retool a lot of those coverages, and they're going to have to retool a lot of that back half of the defense, including the safety play, because Sauce will be moving around. That's my biggest concern. My biggest concern is not the players that we have, it's the scheme. Why change the scheme? Keep the scheme the way it is. It's working. It is. You give up some big plays because sometimes Reed can't handle, the guy that he's covering. But again, why complicate it? It goes back to my offensive line thing. Why complicate? Why move people around? Someone goes down, plug them in. Why complicate the system? It's working right now. What are your thoughts?
Well, I know that the Jets have come out and said, oh, well, he might travel more this year. I think that it's going to be more of a don't try to fix what's not broken.
Right.
I mean, last year, the Jets defense was very good, and they were on the field. It felt like 90% of the time. I mean,
right.
How many times are we doing post-game shows or halftime shows where we're like 3-and-out, 3-and-out? Oh, it was 5 straight 3-and-outs this week. It was 7 straight 3-and-outs this week. It was 10 straight 3-and-outs this week.
You have no time to sit with your teammates, sit with your coaches, and go over what happened, because all of a sudden you're right back out on the field. You have no rest.
Exhausted.
You have no time to you have no rest. You have no time to sit there and think about what happened and actually try and change something. That's why we had so many. That's why they played better in the second half, because they actually had a chance to sit down with their coaches and figure out what's going wrong and fix it instead of having time to sit on the sideline. So I do like that portion for the whole defense as a whole. I just worry about.
I think it's going to change this year.
Right. Okay. I get that.
There's no reason. Here's my thing. And that's one thing that ticked, I think, every Jet fan off about the Cleveland Brown game was we heard going in, Sauce was supposed to travel with Cooper, and Cooper was out. So it kind of threw the whole plan away. But they didn't do what they did the year before week 1 against the Ravens with Mark Andrews. You knew that they were going to be targeting him, the Ravens. So the Jets said, you know what, for a play or two, we're going to stick Sauce Gardner on him. And I think that's where you got to play it. I mean, when we face Buffalo this year, how many proven outside weapons do they have? Not many at all. So maybe you see on a big 3rd and 7, that's when they switch it up and you'll see Sauce Gardner on a Dalton Kincaid, something like that. I do not see Saleh, who had a top flight rated defense last year, saying, you know what, we're going to scrap every single piece of cohesiveness that we have so that Sauce Gardner can look better following the number 1. We saw last year heading into the season and the year prior, what did they say? It's coming together. The defense is going to be great. We need to get our communication down. We're new here. We're learning this there. We're trying to get each other's tendencies down where we're going to be. By having Sauce Gardner consistently travel, it changes everything. DJ Reed's used to playing on the same side he plays on every game. And that's one thing, like Darrelle Revis always talked about, being able to push your defender out of bounds. DJ Reed, not saying everyone forgets, everyone knows, but he's like 5'7", 5'8". So you want him to be as comfortable as possible playing on one side of the field. Now, if you're going to tell me you have games against, which we know are coming, Tyreek Hill, and you want to stick Sauce Gardner on him, that's different. But for me, it's a week-to-week approach. Saying that just every week we're going to change into a man defense, the Rex Ryan defense, where Sauce Gardner is going to be following the best guy around, makes absolutely zero sense to me, especially considering we have an offense that's supposed to put up points. The best way for our defense to be successful in that scenario is to allow our edge rushers to get after the quarterback and allow our corners to have as much comfortability in the secondary as possible. So for me, it is a non-starter having Sauce every game follow the best receiver around.
Stiggers. I think Stiggers, if he play, so it's basically a lottery ticket, as Connor Hughes put it when I interviewed him. Is basically the pick is basically a lottery ticket. You may hit him, you may hit on the player, and you may not. If you do hit on Stiggers, which is a very unique situation considering he did not play any college ball, he played quote unquote professional football and played against a higher tier than the NCAA, but if he actually is able to be a starter, who's the odd man out? Is it Reed or is it Carter? I think it's Reed.
Ooh. We had this space with the reporter that covered Stiggers, and his mother came in on that space, and she was very much appreciated. But you listen to that story, what an unbelievable story, and I just don't know if it's possible. Even if he balls out, say he balls out, outplays DJ Reed, outplays Michael Carter II, I don't think it's plausible for him to get a starting position right now outside of injury. I think that there's too much validity already built into what DJ Reed can do, what Michael Carter II can do, and obviously Sauce is on a different planet. But I just don't see it happening right now outside of injury. Now, the one good thing is maybe
I'm not saying right now. I'm saying in 2025.
Oh, it's we all know it's DJ Reed.
Right, you're not paying
DJ Reed, of course, because you're going to have to make Sauce Gardner the highest paid defensive player in the history of the NFL probably after this year. So if you could have a guy making, a couple $100,000 or a couple $1 million at the cornerback position, that's it. And that's why I know Jeff fans will sit here and say, well, you can't put any stock into OTAs. There's no pads. They're in tights, yada, yada. Defensive back is where you could put stock in the OTAs because they are at such a disadvantage. There's no grabbing, there's no pulling, there's no pass rush, so the quarterback could sit there forever. It's 7-on-7, and for him to bowl out the way that he did, maybe that's an indictment on the kind of player that he is. He played really well in the Canadian Football League. I know it's a completely different type of game, but for him to stand out as a corner in 7-on-7s, that's probably very rare. I mean, I seen Sauce do it last year when we were at training camp a few times, obviously, but it's so hard. Think about it. You don't have a sideline. You're in the middle of the field, no pass rush, no safety help. You don't know what's going on. It's mano a mano, man v man, and he showed out in training camp. So maybe that's a player that we should really keep a close eye on heading into training camp once the pads come on.
Defensive line. So
my pet peeve. I want to say something that people don't like.
Go ahead, say it. You started off.
Look, I am not going to sit here and pretend. Let me pull up my numbers so I have them right here. Okay, here we go. I am not going to sit here and pretend as though Quinnen Williams is not an unbelievable player. But he did not play unbelievable last year. And I understand people are going to say, well, he played great in the run game. You can't control how much he's out there. He gets rotated. Blah, da, 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 da. Here are the facts. 12 sacks in 2022. Great year. Got a monster contract. Last year, 5.5 sacks. Arguably the best pass rush he's ever had to help him on the outside. Bryce Huff had a great year. Jermaine Johnson had a pretty damn good year. JFM was still on this roster. You had guys bowling out all around him. He's getting paid to put up double-digit sacks. And when you look at his career, 2.5 his rookie year, 7 his second year, 6 his third year, 12 he gets paid a monster contract, and then it goes to 5.5. The last time he had less than 5.5 sacks was his rookie season. And I know he's not paid totally to get sacks. I know Jeff fans are going to come at me for that. But at the end of the day, you made him one of the highest paid defensive players in the history of the game. And he needs to play like that. I expect minimum 10 sacks this year, especially if our offense is putting up points the way that they're supposed to. If Aaron Rodgers stays healthy and we are up in games the way I think we are going to be, it is unacceptable to have 5.5 sacks making that kind of money. Coming off a year where you more than doubled that production. Unacceptable. And I'll wait. My DMs were open, Jeff fans.
Is it possible that you have your head up your ass? No.
Maybe.
Is it possible that the sacks that Quinnen would have gotten ended up going to guys like JJ and ended up going to guys like Huff?
You want to tell me 2, 3? You're telling me 4? You're telling me 5? You're telling me 6?
3?
5 minutes. You went from 12 to 5.5. That is a monumental drop off. That is like TJ Watt going from 8 to 8.
You're talking about going. If he would gotten another 3 sacks from situations like that, then we're talking about 8.5, possibly 9 sacks. Now it's not that bad of a season.
I agree. 5.5.
Yeah.
5.5 when you have all pro talent all around. You think about this, Pat. You have an all-pro, 2-time all-pro, the first defensive player in the history of football to be named in his first and second year, first-team all-pro at cornerback. You have another all-pro type Pro Bowler in DJ Reed on the other side. So there's coverage sacks to be had. Quincy Williams had an all-out, all-pro year at the linebacker position. You have amazing pass rushers on the outside that are going to force quarterbacks up the middle. I need to see Quinnen Williams, and he's going to face more double teams now than ever. Because as we talk about the defensive line depth, that defensive tackle position I am not happy with, to say the least.
Look,
and if anything's going to be a downfall of our defense, it's going to be that.
I think he's more of a facilitator. If he
then
gets
you don't get paid the kind of money that he got. Go look at guys like
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but I think he does a lot more than what you're giving him credit for.
That's always been the excuse of Jeff. He did a lot more too the year prior when he got 12 sacks and got paid the second highest paid contract a defensive tackle has ever gotten. He's supposed to be putting, I'm not saying Aaron Donald type numbers, not saying that, but he needs to be top 3 to 5 every single season when it comes to sacks. You cannot be giving me Sheldon Rankins type sack totals. That's just my opinion. I know Jet fans will get on me about it. I understand the run stuffing ability of Quinnen Williams. He gets a double team, so he allows other people to flourish. You know what? TJ Watt gets double teamed. Joey Bosa gets double teamed. Aaron Donald gets double teamed. Christian Wilkins gets double teamed. All the greats get double teamed, but they're that damn great. They find ways to get home. You're going to tell me he's going to give us, I'll take 8 sacks in an all-pro year as a run defender. I think that's fair enough. It's very fair. But 5.5 on a Super Bowl contending defense. We were talking about the 85 Bears. We hear DJ Reed say that. How many times last year? 85 Bears and our best player gets 5.5 sacks. Come on, man.
I don't think he's the best player on the defense. I'll give you that.
Oh, well, obviously
we'll
now,
see.
Sauce Gardner, but you know.
We'll see.
Well, that's an argument to be had. Maybe in the offseason. Clip this.
I hope you get chewed apart on Twitter, X, whatever the hell it's called right now. I hope you get your face just shoved into the toilet. Anyway, Reddick. Okay, so here's the story that I got from Connor Hughes on Reddick, and I'll have the video. I'll have the interview posted in the comments of this video for you guys to check it out. When he showed up for his physical, okay, his first visit to the facilities, he told everybody that he was going to be there. He was going to make all the OTAs, mini camp, training camp, you name it. He was all in. He was going to be there. Connor Hughes trusted the people that told him that. These are guys that, as he put it, don't blow smoke up his ass, was his quote. Shoot him straight. And that was how what the Jets believed was going to happen. From then to the start of minicamp, somebody got into his ear, as Connor put it. Somebody got into his ear. Clearly, I think it was obvious that it was his agent, but somebody got into his ear and told him that he has the leverage in this situation. And that's why he stopped showing up. Inside, he decided to cut personal communication off from guys, from the coaching staff. The Jets do not plan on reworking his contract. They told him that they would explore a contract after the season, and that has not changed. They will not sign him to a new contract this year. The most that they will do is that they will guarantee his contract this year and maybe put a few little incentives in there for things like sacks. But that is all that they are going to do. And they haven't moved. They haven't budged from that situation. Again, the whole interview for Connor Hughes will be in the link to this video. You can check out exactly what he said. I'm paraphrasing here, but that is what happened. If he does not show up to training camp, the fines get very significant. I think he will eventually show up to training camp. I don't think this is a situation where if he misses a significant amount of training camp, he's going to be behind the 8 ball, because at the end of the day, he is a pass rusher. It's a concerning situation, but I do not think it's going to get out of hand.
What's his fine? What's it, $40,000 a day?
It's $40,000 a day come training camp. That's a lot of money to put up.
And with the new CBA, unlike the old CBA, you saw it with Revis like every season. You can't just sit there and forgive fines anymore.
No, you can't. And, that's a lot of money to give up to a team that told you specifically, we are not going to rework your contract this year. We will do it next year. And as far as the Jets knew, he was on board with that. And clearly that changed. The most that they will do, they will guarantee his contract this year, maybe put in a few little incentives for things like sacks, but that is it. And if he walks at the end of the season, if McDonald actually comes on and plays pretty well, they have no problem moving on from Haason Reddick. Where is your head at? What do you think about the whole situation?
It sucks. I didn't think anything was going to be different. When I talked to Paul Riley, who's one of the hosts of our JetCast every Wednesday night at 7, he said, why would Reddick show up until training camp? The big thing for him right now is his contract, I do not believe, is guaranteed. Like,
it's not
any of it almost. So for him to go into mandatory minicamp, risk getting hurt, and God forbid he blows out an ACL, the Jets could say, see you later, and save all that money on the cap. That's the issue he's running into. So I think the happy median is going to be the Jets saying, all right, so we'll guarantee your contract for this next year. You come in, he'll try to ball out. He's turning 30, I believe, September 22nd. So this is his last chance to get any type of payday. So if I'm Haason Reddick, I'm showing up for training camp, I know I need to ball out. We've seen what happens to guys that hold out in the past. I mean, the Jets are the best example of it. Le'Veon Bell. The guys who hold out, it never returns to them. So he's going to show up for training camp, $40,000 a day. Every 10 days of training camp, he's losing $4 million.
$400,000
or $400,000. So over time, you're talking well over $1 million. It doesn't make any sense. And the fines only get bigger and bigger as we head into, as we go towards the season. So he's going to show up for training camp. I fully expect him to be there. I'm not worried at all. If it was a rookie not having his deal done, I'd be worried about it. In this situation, I just think it's just noise. It's the Jets. Circus is always in town. Tickets are $5. But I'm not worried about it.
There's always something to talk about with this team. I feel like there's always some sort of nonsense going on. Did you hear that the guy who designed the logo is suing the team?
Yeah, I see you post. Is that real?
Yes, that's real. TMZ had it. Is the guy that designed
Did they have
the
a deal
logo?
with him?
I have no idea. I didn't even read the
the
article. I
Jets
just saw it, and I was
didn't
like,
pay
I don't want to
him,
look at this. Like,
trademark or something.
Of course. Right. I think he's unless he gets whatever the money he's asking for, he's demanding that the judge like revoke their trademark on the logo. Apparently, they never paid him back in the late 70s when they redesigned the logo. And I get they had this. They featured the guy on their YouTube video, on their YouTube channel when they redid the logo. They featured him, and then somebody got into his ear and said, "Hey, did you make any money off of this?"
Haason Reddick's agent.
Yeah, probably Haason Reddick. So I want to. Good friend of the show, Nick Faria, wrote a really cool article for Pro Football Network called 5 Bold Predictions for the Jets. I know you did not see you did not read it yet. So I want to read these off to you, and I want to get your immediate reaction. So the first one is Garrett Wilson sets the targets record for the NFL. He said plenty of receivers have gotten close to Marvin Harrison's target record of 205, set back in 2002. He thinks Garrett is going to end that record this season. Targets, not catches, just targets.
I don't see it happening. And the reason why I love Nick. Nick's my guy. But we're a ground and pound football team, baby. Mm-hmm. And we're not hiding from it. You don't ground and pound and do that. And it'd be one thing. Look, if we never got Mike Williams, we're kind of in a situation where you have to force the ball to Garrett. But you brought in a guy like Mike Williams, a 6'5" monster on the outside. You drafted a guy like Corley. They're going to be ground and pound, and the ball is going to get spread out. That's how I see it.
He would need an average of 15 targets a game over 17.
Yeah, that's not happening. I'd be willing to bet a lot of money on that, Nick.
Okay.
Next.
Second one. Breece Hall records 2,000 yards from scrimmage.
I think that is way more likely than the Garrett Wilson thing. Mm-hmm. I actually predicted him to have just slightly below 1,200 yards rushing this season. I think that he knows his payday's coming. It is year 3, time to get paid. And guys like him are going to get paid. So
I think he's going to be the first one paid out of the batch of that 2020.
Right, because he doesn't have the 5th year. He doesn't have the 5th year.
Right. So I mean, they can franchise him, but for the other guys, they can pick up the 5th year, then they can franchise. They can have contractual control of players for longer than Breece Hall is. And I know like the NFL does not value the running back position as much as say us fans do.
Outside of Saquon Barkley, who just got paid.
Yeah. If he continues to play the way he's playing, I don't see how they can't. I don't see how they don't pay him. But I could totally see 2,000 yards from scrimmage. I don't think that's.
You want to tell me 1,800? I think that's more realistic.
I could see.
Obviously.
What do you have? What do you have last year? 15?
Now you got me curious.
I'm pretty sure it was 15. Quick, Google.
Yeah, let's see. Breece Hall. Always got to go to Pro Football Reference. That's always the place to go. Let's see. So he had 994 on the rush.
Right. We knew that was the whole nonsense where they miscalculated how many yards at the end of the game, which this team can't even do.
So he had 1585.
Right.
With Zach Wilson? You're telling me he
with Zach Wilson, Tim
now
Boyle,
all of a sudden I'm like, Maybe I need to go to Vegas with those odds.
All right. Next one. Offensive line stays relatively healthy. I don't think that's a bold prediction.
Kind of is. Kind of. Look, Tyron Smith always hurt something. Vera-Tucker always out. I mean, it's really kind of who gets hurt.
Here's what he said. This is arguably the boldest of all takes surrounding the Jets this season. Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, and AVT have dealt with plenty of injuries over the last few years, so it's hard to assume they'll magically stay healthy in 2024. I get it. Tyron Smith, but again, Nick, you said relatively healthy. So what do you mean by relatively healthy?
Yeah, Tyron Smith allowed to play his 13 games.
I know. I think you could put money on it right now. Tyron Smith is not playing the full season. If he does, then we're going to the big game. But I don't see it happening, and I'm happy we have Fashanu to plug the hole when he does eventually.
Well, does he count towards health? Because he's kind of like a 1A type starter in my mind.
We'll see. He's going to text me after this and probably rip us apart. Okay, next one. Jets win 12 games, reach AFC Championship. That's not a bold take because that's happening. I mean,
that's already foregone conclusion. Next,
if Aaron stays upright, if Aaron stays upright, and yes, if the line stays healthy, I have a hard time. You take our roster and stack it up against the other 31 teams, we're right up there.
Well, let me ask you this:
the amount of weapons and the depth that we have, I feel.
Which roster would you take full roster this year or 2010? Prime Revis.
I'd probably say this year because you have Aaron Rodgers.
The whole take that other Jeff fans would say though, like our guy Paul Riley would say, we don't know what Aaron's going to be. Which is a fair take. We can't just discount that.
I can tell you he'll be better than Mark Sanchez. As good as Mark was Mark has a soft place in all of our hearts. But the fact is that team was built for Brett Favre.
Right.
So
it's an interesting question, though. I feel like that team had way more veteran leadership. The offensive lines in 09-10, the Fanekas, the Fergusons, Mangles, Woody. Remember, we had 4 first-round picks on that O-line.
Yeah, no, I get it, but I think if you go position by position, Washington. I get it, but I think I would still take this year because I think Aaron Rodgers elevates, even at his age, I think he elevates the team more so than Mark Sanchez would have. That's my take.
Agree.
And I think it's the most important position in all of sports.
Fair comparison, right?
No, fair comparison. What was that? Was that number 3? Hold on. I skipped one.
Wait for training camp to get here, man.
Haason Reddick wins Defensive Player of the Year.
All right. Well, it's not even.
Is that Nick letting his
Philly fandom get to him?
Look, I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Oh, we got to clip these and send them to him.
Defensive Player of the Year, I'm all for it.
Does that mean Quinnen gets double-digit sacks again, or is he still stealing?
Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams, and Quincy Williams are all players who are elite enough to be in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. Quincy Williams?
Well, at least Quincy was all pro.
That's true.
I mean, Quinnen Williams, he got paid in his sack total. God forbid his sack total falls again. Sauce Gardner, yeah, obviously. I mean, Sauce Gardner was in the running this past season.
He's predicting that Reddick is going to break his career high mark of 16 sacks.
You never know what a motivated guy could do, and it's not like he's fallen off at all. That
No.
guy's a monster, and if Quinnen gets those double teams
16
inside,
sacks. You're
I'll
telling
take
me
it.
he's going to get more than 16 sacks? JJ's going to get another 10? And then you want
McDonald gets
Quinnen,
4.
and then you want Williams to get another 8?
I want 10. I think double-digit sacks is mandatory with a contract like that.
Listen, I'm all for Reddick taking Defensive Player of the Year. If all Defensive Player of the Year, 12 wins, and the offensive line stays healthy, I mean, I'm going to be speaking in tongues by the time December and January come around. I'm not going to know what to do with myself.
Then we could all blame the coaches for losing.
Yeah, right? Then we can all just blame Salah for anything that happens, which I don't think many people do already. All right. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. This is a long video. This is a cool video. We're going to have, I got a few more coming out. We are taking a little bit of a break here. Ray's going on vacation. I'm going on vacation. So we're going to come back right after the start of training camp. We're going to get Nick back on. I'm going to try and get Connor Hughes back on, guys that are actually there and can give us their breakdown of what they're seeing. Ray, I know we're going to go to training camp. I don't know when exactly. We need to figure that out. We'll let you guys know. We'll have some content coming out when we make that trip. Other than that, I mean, again, it's the dead part of the off season. There's not too much going on, and this is what we're looking forward to going into training camp.
Yeah, appreciate all you guys. I can't believe how big this channel has grown in such a short period of time, and we appreciate you guys. And I'm looking forward to some of these lives that we're going to be doing, because it's enough for me and you to sit here and chat, but to interact with other fans, that's what's going to be most exciting. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
All right. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Again, I'm going to have that Connor Hughes interview in the description of this video. We'll see you guys next time. Go Jets.
Go Jets.